Welcome back to Solo Adventures. My name is Livy and I'm here yet again with another BGG Solitaire Games Contest review. So today the game we're going to be having a look at is Save the Queen. Save the Queen is a peg solitaire style sort of game in which you play as a bee who's attempting to protect his queen bee on her quest to re-establish a new colony. Along the way you're going to have to fight enemies and collect as much nectar as possible. As usual, if you're not actually interested in watching me play this game, feel free to skip to the end to hear my final thoughts. Otherwise, let's venture forth. So Save the Queen requires very little in terms of setup. We just need to separate our cards by number, so put all the 1s in one pile, the 2s in the 2 pile, and the 3s in the 3 pile, shuffle them up, and that's about it. Also, we begin with a marker on 1 for the nectar counter, and this is on 0 currently. And this represents the number of territory points that we have gotten. Now, we get territory points by resolving these cards. So the higher the number, the more difficult they are, and therefore the more points we get. We need to explore at least 9 points worth of territory by the time we have finished 6 cards. So if we do not have 9 points at the end of 6 cards, then we lose. So no matter what, we always start with a level 1 card. So you can see here on this card we have various colored spaces, and on the red spaces we put ants. Now these are our enemies. What we're trying to do is we are attempting to defeat as many enemies as possible to save the queen bee, who is here. Now we are the royal guard and we are the black pawn, and our aim is to attempt to defeat as many enemies as possible while also collecting as much nectar as possible, because we need nectar to do special moves, and we will need these special moves later on in the game for the higher difficulty cards. So on each of the white spaces you put a nectar, and on each of the red spaces you put an ant. On each of the blue spaces you place a wasp, and the wasps are special because they have 2 health. So we need to jump over them twice to defeat them. So the round ends when I either defeat all of the enemies or if I end up right next to the queen. And then I will get 5 nectar for beating the level, but from that 5 I have to subtract how many enemies are still left here, and that can put me in the negative. If I ever get down to less than 1 nectar, then I also lose. So I couldn't just declare a victory here because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 enemies, and that would put us -8, so that's not possible. So we have this special custom die. It only has 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s on it, and then it's got 2 blank sides. And we roll this die every time we land on a nectar. And that tells us how many nectar points we get. So let's begin. I am not great at this game, but I'm going to try my best. So we'll hop over this one. Hop over that one. And I just land straight on the nectar. You don't hop over the nectar, you land on it. So I get 1 nectar, and let's roll. 1. So you can see our special abilities here. If we wanted, we could spend 3 nectar to hop over 2 enemies at once, or we could spend 1 to do an angle jump. So if we do an angle jump, we wouldn't end here, we would end here, for example. Or here if that was free. So I'm going to need to do an angle jump to get over this ant here. So now I'm back down to 1 nectar. And I jump over here. 1. And I'll do an angle jump. Get over that one. Jump there. Jump here. Go over here. So we roll. 2. And that is the end of this round because I can't get over this guy. So we get 5 nectar for beating this card. And we beat the card even though there's one enemy still on the board, because there's one enemy, but it's more than one space away from the queen. So if we had 2 enemies, if one's within 2 spaces of the queen, then we lose. And if we have 3 enemies within 3 spaces of the queens, and so on and so forth. But we're not doing too bad for nectar here. Now here's our first card. I am going to have to start doing the higher difficulties pretty soon, but I'm going to save up a bit more nectar first. So we'll do another easy card. So this card has flavor text. Great, just what I need. I'm surrounded by goons that are bigger than me and keeping me from the queen. This is a great time to show off. Most of the cards have little flavor text, which is very cute. There's also a lot of bee puns. Like, be careful, or because. Oh, this is going to be a little tight. Okay. This one has 1 health left, trying not to upset all of the cubes around it. Let's see how much nectar we get. None. Okay. And we're going to have to spend nectar because we can only hop at an angle. So that costs 1. And I can hop over this and onto this nectar. 2. Another nectar? Nope. So I'm going to spend 3 nectar to jump over these 2 guys. Boom. So I think we're going to have to stop here, because if I jump over this wasp, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get back. So we're next to the queen, let's cut our losses. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for winning, and we subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're back at square one basically. Not really a win, not really a loss, that's okay. But we're 2 cards in now, so we have to start thinking about maybe doing a harder one. So let's try our luck at a level 2 card. You keep trying to organize against us, but we're going to make a home and you can't have our nectar. There is no nectar on this board, so we're going to have to be careful. And I think right out of the gate I have to do an angle hop because there's really no other way around this. And another angle hop. Oh, wait, nope, I will not do that. And I'll jump over 2 enemies. I'm down to 1 nectar though, so that's that. I might be stuck here. Yeah, I don't think there's much I can do. I can't spend my last nectar to do an angle hop, and that won't really help me. So I think I'm backed into a hole. So that's it. I lose with a grand total of 2 territory points. So yeah, I'm terrible at this game, but what are my thoughts on it? Let's talk about it. As usual, I'm going to start with the build. So if you like, of course, you can just print out the low ink version of the files and you can use any kind of cubes or markers you like for the bees and enemies and nectar. And you can just use a normal die to figure out how much nectar you roll for. Or you can be like me and you can go the whole 9 yards and sticker up all the cubes and make a custom die and do all of that fun stuff. I made the stickers on the cubes and the die beautiful and glossy and durable by first putting the label sheet through a laminator. And this works like a charm. It can be a little bit tricky to actually peel the back off without peeling the laminate layer off the top, but I feel like it's worth the extra effort. If you're having a hard time getting the backing off, then I just take a little bit of tape and stick it on the back and kind of pry it off that way. I believe there are also files for 3D printing the queen and the guard pawns, which I did not use because I don't have a 3D printer. And I think there is also a file for making a talk box for this game. I really appreciate this attention to detail in making the game feel really flavorful and making it as close to a professional retail sort of game as possible. So what did I like about this game? I like that this peg solitaire sort of puzzle is something that you don't really see every day. Now, I remember playing with those little jumping golf tees like at my grandma's house when I was little, but I haven't played a game like this for years. And it's really fun to go back to something like this. I like how all of the cards are different and how it's a different puzzle on each card and how you have to weigh the risks of going to get more nectar or fighting off more enemies, or whether you should just finish off and hang out next to the queen and take a nectar penalty for leaving some enemies on the card. The gameplay is excellent in that respect. I find it difficult, but then I am just really terrible at peg solitaire, so I'm sure that's my fault. I think if you're really good at peg solitaire, this game might be a bit of a breeze. But no matter what, there's going to be no guarantee of victory, and that is because of the rolling for the nectar. Now, it is this mechanic that I think really lends the game serious replayability, and it adds an element of suspense or wonder if it's even worth going to try to collect the nectar. Because you could get no nectar, or you could get up to 3. In short, if you like peg solitaire, this is a very good, much deeper version of this, and I think that you will really like this game. I see no problem with the balance or the gameplay really whatsoever as far as I can think of. I do, however, have a few criticisms about this game. And first and foremost is the aesthetic. I guess this is really totally a matter of taste, but I know these cards look like they're black, probably on camera, but they're really more kind of like a dark brown. When I think of honeybees, I don't necessarily think of this kind of dark aesthetic. I think of spring meadows and blue skies and beautiful flowers and things like that. I I feel like the art style of this game is a real missed opportunity. I personally really don't like the design of the cards. I don't really like how this game looks. I believe that it's been updated to put a little bit of grass in with it, which I think is probably a good thing. But from what I've seen, in my opinion, it's not quite enough. I would like to see something that's a bit more bright, something a bit more vibrant, something that's a little bit more what you think of when you think of bees. Once again, it's just personal taste, but I am just not really a fan of the art style. The biggest problem with this game, I think, would be easy to fix, and I'm not really sure why it hasn't been. The cards are simply too small. Now, as you saw, I'm using 1 centimeter cubes, and I do think it would be easier if you used 8mm standard size Euro cubes, but probably most of us don't have spares lying around. And even if we did, it's still kind of awkward. I feel like this game would be way better if the cards were like twice as big. Now, it might be a little bit weird to shuffle, but I think I could get used to it. I have little hands and little fingers, and even I have problems with kind of bumping and moving around the enemies a little bit and not really being able to track where they should be, or accidentally moving the guard around and forgetting where I'm at. And it's really hard. It's really hard to flip over the little blue cubes for the wasps that display their health. You have to be so careful when flipping them over to display this. I feel like the board is just way too easy to upset. I feel like the game would be really nice and really relaxed and really kind of light and fun if it wasn't for this, but I personally find this game a little bit frustrating, and that is entirely due to the size. I think the designer wanted the cards to be a standard card size, and these are tarot size, but I think you should really have no fear of increasing the size of these cards, even if it's by just a little bit. It's okay if they're not standard size. I don't feel like most of us use tarot sleeves anyway, so it shouldn't really be a problem from a creation standpoint. So just a couple of like component and visual design things aside, I really like this game. I think it's an extremely strong entry in this year's contest, and I feel like you should still try it. I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. I don't have any other Peg Solitaire style type games in my collection, so it does fill a niche if I have an urge to play a game where you jump over things. I really like the nectar mechanic of being able to do special jumps, so I like deciding whether it's worth it to spend to do the double jump, or whether you would rather preserve your nectar for the future. Try out this game because it's excellent. Just be prepared to have very steady hands. The game as it is right now, I would give maybe a 6 out of 10, which is not bad. For me, 5 out of 10 is average, so it would be slightly above average. But if the cards were bigger and if they were easier to maneuver, I would easily make this maybe a 7.5 or an 8. I feel like this game could have a ton of expansions, and there could be lots of new cards with lots of new maps and maybe new enemies. This game has a lot of potential, and I feel like it could be developed into something wonderful. As it is still good though, so do try it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button, and if you feel so inclined, you can support me on Patreon. You can also check out the Facebook group for solo adventurers. So until next time, my friends, happy adventuring.